Well, everyone, let's do another comparison between two popular phones. I'm pretty sure one is way more popular than the other one now, and those two phones are the iPhone 11 and the iPhone XS. Now, I've already compared these not too long ago, I think like September, whenever the iPhone 11 came out, and I found that, honestly, like there's a lot of advantages for both phones, and now that like 5 months have passed, I wanted to go back and see how they compare now because, a lot of things have changed. The software is different. It's the same software, but we've gotten software updates. The company is a little bit different now. The stock price went down quite a bit, and that kind of sees what the future of maybe Apple could look like. But the main thing is probably the price. Both these phones have depreciated in price, and they've actually leveled out. They're about the same price in the used market, if I'm being honest. You can get an iPhone 11 for about $550 to $600. An iPhone XS you can buy for about $500. And on Amazon right now, the iPhone 11 is selling for $600. The iPhone XS is selling for $500. So if you want to pick either of those up for those prices I listed, the iPhone 11 is actually a little cheaper on there versus if you buy it at the Apple Store. I'll leave those linked down in the description below so you can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. But looking on the front, this is probably one of the bigger differences. The iPhone 11 still has obviously the 6.1-inch Liquid Retina IPS panel. It is an 828 by 1792 panel, and it's not a bad panel. I don't think it's really that bad. I think for sure when you compare it to something like a XS, it's definitely not as good because that one has an OLED display. But I do think Apple did a pretty decent job with the IPS panel on the iPhone 11. There is a noticeable extra bezel around the screen itself. And one thing that I've been seeing a lot is like when I'm holding my iPhone 11 and when I'm using it, because I've been making a ton of videos on this thing, really more so of like installing certain software and doing little things like jailbreaks and stuff like that. The iPhone 11 still has some heft to it when I compare it to an iPhone XS, and some people might like that, some people might not. But just know that the iPhone 11 is noticeably heavier than something like an iPhone XS. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're looking at it. But the iPhone XS has that 5.8-inch Super Retina OLED display. It's 1125 by 2436. And that panel is definitely, in my opinion, much better than the iPhone 11. And I think most people definitely say that the iPhone XS panel is better. And nothing has really changed since then. They both have pretty much the same type of layout, bezel-less almost with the notch up top and Face ID. But definitely for sure at the end of the day, I believe that the iPhone XS has the better panel for sure. So that really pretty much covers it up in terms of the front. They both have lightning ports at the bottom and dual camera setups on the back, and one is they're both kind of opposites. One has a telephoto lens, the other one has an ultra wide sensor, and it's funny because when you combine the both you actually get like an 11 Pro camera. So I think both of them have their advantages for sure, but not one really outlasts the other one in terms of the build quality. But definitely I'll say the iPhone XS feels like the more premium phone even now in 2020. And it's funny because now we have those Galaxy S20s coming out, and those have some killer features in them if I'm being honest. So the iPhone 12s of this year, they have to really step up their game in order to be competitors against the iPhone 12 and 12 Pros and the Galaxy S20s. So I guess we'll see what happens there. So I'm really excited about what 2020 has to offer in terms of that. They both have IP certification, IP68 dust and water resistant, so you can go up to 2 meters of water for 30 minutes. And really in terms of the outside, that pretty much covers it. There's not much more to hit on outside. Now hitting on the software, both phones are really going to be lasting for a very long time. The iPhone XS started off with iOS 12. The iPhone 11 started off with iOS 13. We're able to get iOS 13.3.1 on it so far. Hopefully iOS 13.4 comes out soon because iOS 14 is coming out in the next couple months. And Apple has not pushed an update in a long time, and that's one of the bigger disadvantages with iOS 13 so far, and one of the biggest differences that we've seen from the beginning of iOS 13 to the ending. Apple kind of stopped pushing updates out for a very long time. I mean, it's been like, I think over a month since our last update, and even that update was like a 0.1 release, so it wasn't even that big of an update. And there's still a lot of bugs and everything within the software, so hopefully Apple can go and, knock those out a little bit. In terms of the software though and the longevity of them, I think both of them are going to last for a very long time. It's hard to say which one is, obviously the iPhone 11 has a higher chance of, outlasting the iPhone XS, but there's also a possibility that the iPhone XS could last as long as the iPhone 11. I'm not really too sure. It's kind of 50-50 right now, but I guess we'll see what happens when the time comes. So in terms of software, that pretty much covers it. However, one of the biggest changes that has happened within even the last couple of weeks was that new uncovered jailbreak. So before the iPhone 11, there wasn't really a jailbreak out for it, but now this very, very cool jailbreak, if you're within iOS 13 and iOS 13.3 on either the iPhone XS or the iPhone 11, you can actually jailbreak your device without using a computer or anything like that. And I have a tutorial on how to do it, and it's a very, very easy process. You just need to make sure you're between those iOS versions, and you can easily jailbreak your phones. A lot of tweaks are compatible with that jailbreak. I think all of them are pretty much. All the ones that are compatible with the iPhone 10 on iOS 13 are going to be compatible with these, and that's honestly one of my favorite things that have changed since that last release, or at least since the initial release of the iPhone 11. That's a big, big deal, and whether you like it or not, whether you want to jailbreak or not, that is a humongous advantage. And if you're between iOS 13 and 13.3, trust me, you're going to be set. I would not even update your phone for a little bit. If you want to, you can resell that phone. You'll probably end up getting more people who are interested in it because it's in between those. So in terms of software, that really pretty much covers it up there. Now hitting on the performance, the iPhone XS has the Apple A12 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU, and there's 3 different models of 64, 256, and 512 gigabyte models, and all those models had 4 gigabytes of RAM. Where the iPhone 11 has the Apple A13 Bionic chip, a hexa-core CPU as well, and 3 different models, but these are a little bit different. It has a 64, 128, and 256 gigabyte models, and all those models had 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now, what I can tell you about the performances of both these phones is that, like I said in my first comparison, nothing has really changed in terms of the performance. They're both pretty much the same, I would say, in terms of performance, but I think the iPhone 11 might have a little bit of an edge. So, if you're in my speed comparisons, when I test them and everything, maybe that one is able to, boot it up a little bit faster. Maybe it's able to do a couple things here and there. But in reality, I think both phones are extremely fast. And I'll give you this example. When you're walking down the street and you're going to work or you're going to school or whatever the case is, you're walking your dog and you're on your phone, do you think to yourself all the time, oh, I wish my phone was faster. I wish my phone is so slow, whatever. Some people might think that if you have like an iPhone 5 still, but if you own like an iPhone 8 or like an iPhone 10 or 10s, whatever, you're not thinking to yourself, oh, I need to go upgrade because my phone is so slow. I don't think a majority of people are doing that. And I don't think a majority of people are constantly comparing an iPhone 11 to an iPhone XS in front of their faces every day. I own both the phones and I never do that. You know what I mean? So I say that because, the iPhone XS is still more than enough fast and it has more than enough performance for you to get through your day. And definitely if you're going to upgrade to an iPhone 11, I think in a lot of ways it's a downgrade. But if you're going to go from an iPhone 11 to an iPhone XS, performance would definitely not be one of those things. It might be slightly faster, but I don't think it's going to be, a flip of the switch where you're going to get way better performance and all that stuff. Like the iPhone XS, in my opinion, is still a very, very good performing phone, and I would definitely not go for an iPhone XS to an iPhone 11 just based off the performance. So I think in terms of the performance standpoint, that pretty much covers it. Not much has changed, like I said, but there's really not much more to hit on there. Now hitting on the camera, both phones have dual camera setups on them. The iPhone XS has a 12 megapixel wide angle lens and then a 12 megapixel telephoto lens. The iPhone 11 has a 12 megapixel wide angle lens and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor. So a little bit of difference right there. On the front, the iPhone XS has a 7 megapixel sensor. The iPhone 11 has a 12 megapixel sensor, and this is one of the bigger differences because on the iPhone XS, you can do 1080p at up to 60 frames per second, which is really cool. But on the iPhone 11, you can do 4K at 60 frames, which is insane. A lot of phones still can't even shoot 4K on their back cameras at 60 frames. So think about it like that. I think that's one of the coolest things ever, and I'm so happy Apple did that on this. And just to think that they did it on the most budget version of the iPhone 11 series too, which is really, really cool, and I'm really happy Apple did that. On the back camera, 4K 60 frames, and honestly, they're both very good cameras. Like, I don't really think one has a huge advantage over the other one. I would definitely say you should determine which one you like. Do you like that telephoto lens, or do you like that ultra-wide sensor more? In my opinion, I kind of like that ultra-wide sensor now, only because there's some memes I can do with it on TikTok, and I can fit in a little bit, but other than that, I think the telephoto lens is still fine too. But I think at the end of the day, it's just really whatever you want, you know what I mean? But both cameras on both phones are still very good. I have really no complaints at all. Now, ending it off with the battery life, this is definitely a huge advantage for the iPhone 11. So the XS had a 2,658 mAh battery. The iPhone 11 has a 3,110 mAh battery. And for sure, without a doubt, the iPhone 11 has not only the better battery life between the two, but I think has one of the best battery lives of any iPhone. I think it's right below the 11 Pro Max. This phone will definitely last you for multiple days probably, and will definitely last you much longer than an iPhone XS. Even my iPhone 11 Pro has been lasting me like multiple days. I've been like charging it with like almost 70% to 60% battery life every single day, which is really, really cool. Usually on my iPhone 10, I'd be at like 30-40%. So really, the iPhone 11 has such good battery life, that whole entire series, and I'm really happy Apple Apple actually focus on the battery life this time around. Now, to kind of sum up the video and to answer the question, we're a couple months in, should you pick up an iPhone 11 or an iPhone XS at this point? I'll definitely tell you, if you have to go the brand new route, obviously the iPhone 11 might be the best way to go, but also Apple does sell some certified refurbished iPhone XSs on their website. They are still fairly expensive. I think they're more expensive than the iPhone 11, so you kind of have to keep that in mind when you're looking at them. But I don't think one really overblows the other one out of the water. Just because the iPhone XS is a little bit older doesn't mean it's way worse. And I would definitely tell you, if you want to, I would recommend getting an iPhone XS over an iPhone 11 even now, but really the choice is yours, but that's kind of my opinion. Like I said, if you want to pick either of these ones up, links are down in the description. You can get them on Amazon, but that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys get it. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.